Watching the upper Midwest, we showed you the map yesterday. Keep an eye on Michigan and Wisconsin. They are critical battleground states, separated by just a few votes only 4 years ago. You can go back to 2016, Wisconsin, Michigan, talking 10,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there, and that decided the electoral counts. I just want to come back over here and toss it to Dana. Byron York's going to join us right now. We'll get a sense of where this campaign is right now. And I thought the Fox polling yesterday was very interesting, right? Pennsylvania and Arizona seem to be as razor tight as some of these upper Midwest states.
Although, and I think what Karl Rove writes today is that Trump, if you're a Democrat, you need to understand that Trump is more formidable today than he was in 2020. And that is what they're trying to say. Is Byron York with us, I believe? I want to bring him in. Of course, he's a Fox News contributor, and it's always good to have you with us. So you take a look at those polls, that upper Midwest area. That's, it's vexed Republicans in the past. Democrats try to hold on to it. Right now, Trump in a slight lead in these cases. Where do you think it will end up?
Yeah, first of all, I think we've been really showing an important part of this campaign today, because today Joe Biden is going to be in Michigan and Wisconsin, and Donald Trump is in a courtroom in Fort Pierce, Florida. That is a huge difference that we're going to see in this campaign, and it's going to go on and on and on as the former president's legal cases continue. Now, as far as the closed states are concerned, I think there's something we really need to pay attention to in the new Fox polling. There's a couple of ways you can poll. You can poll Trump versus Biden, or you can poll a five-way race with Trump versus Biden with Robert F. Kennedy and Jill Stein and Cornel West in there, too. Of course, Fox News does both to get the best picture of what's going on. And if you look at those polls of 5 ways, you see the 3 third-party candidates getting anywhere between 10 and 15% of the vote. That is a huge factor when you have 2 candidates who are as tightly matched right now as Joe Biden and Donald Trump.
And just on that, this morning it was released that the Democratic National Committee, for the first time in its history, is going to dedicate a team to the third-party threat, and that will be led by Liz Smith, who, of course, helped Pete Buttigieg back in 2020.
So we, before we talk more about that, what RFK, he had an interesting comment with Trace Gallagher last night at Fox News at night, and Aaron Rodgers. Put up number 2, guys, because in our polling, the economy was number 1 in Arizona and Pennsylvania. Immigration was ranked there high in Arizona as well. But who do you trust more to do a better job? And Arizona's up 14 for Trump, and in Pennsylvania, he's up 12 on that same issue, Byron. If it stays there, and you saw the inflation number from, what, an hour and a half ago, that story is going to stay with America, unfortunately, for the rest of this year, at least.
Absolutely. And a big factor here, again, which nobody has experienced in anybody's lifetime, is that you have 2 candidates running against each other, both of whom have been president of the United States. So when usually you have one candidate who is the president seeking re-election and another who is promising what he'll do if he's elected president, that's not the case here. You've had 2 men who've both been in the office, and I think that's a real strength for Donald Trump. Perhaps voters' memories of him have gotten rosier, whatever the reason. They're saying, look, things were better economically when Donald Trump was president. You can measure that in all sorts of measurements like inflation, and that gives him a big, big edge over Joe Biden.
That's true. Also with Hispanics in particular, the Liberal Patriot blog writing about that specifically yesterday. Let's talk about third parties just a little bit more, because RFK Jr. made a little bit of news last night with Trace Gallagher talking about a potential VP pick that he apparently is going to announce next week on March 26. Watch here.
I really like Aaron because, our appeal is to young people. We're trying to make sure that young people are participating in the political process. Aaron Rodgers is battle-tested. He's stood up. He's been hammered by the press. He's very aware of health issues, and that's one of the things that's one of the key parts of my agenda.
I mean, I'm intrigued. I want to see what's going to happen. What do you think will happen here?
Well, RFK Jr. is an interesting candidate, and he's talking about some interesting choices. Either Aaron Rodgers or Jesse Ventura, the former wrestler and governor of Minnesota. Now, if you've noticed, if this was a trial balloon that RFK Jr. sent up, it has really been shot at a lot among Democrats, among their allies in the media, who are just absolutely trashing this. And I think the subtext of that, whatever Aaron Rodgers' qualifications to be vice president are, the subtext of that is they're really scared that a RFK Jr. candidacy is going to hurt Joe Biden more than it hurts Donald Trump. After all, RFK is really a Democrat. He's a Kennedy Democrat, and his presence on the ballot is probably going to hurt the Democrat more than it hurts Donald Trump.
Okay.
Hence the worry by the Democratic National Committee. Yep. Thanks, Byron. Good to see you.
Byron.
Thanks, folks.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.